Hi, everyone. Welcome to this recording as part of OC's Declassified Survival Guide Week. Today, we are here with Erin from Academic Skills to look at study skills for this term and for future terms whenever you're watching this. We are going to start quickly with a land acknowledgement, which I will say quickly, and then I will pass things on to Erin. So I just want to say that we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Nations for their care for and teaching about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. So Erin, you can take the floor.
Wonderful. Thanks, Elijah, for inviting me today. I'm hoping that I can share some helpful strategies with students at OC and across Trent, of course, that, if you can take away one or two new things today, that's my hope. So we're kind of in those last 4 weeks of the term. It's going to start to feel really hectic and heavy, but I want to tell folks, you've got this. So we're going to talk about some study strategies, and Elijah's going to share some strategies that he uses as well. And we'll talk a little bit about how to make a study plan. And I'll share where you can find some more guides and resources on our website near the end. So the first thing I want to share is that really we want you to kind of try to feel like you have control over your work. So the all-nighter or the cramming session is not going to make you feel good. It's not going to help you to do your best work. So try to spread it out over the weeks or over several days. I think we often procrastinate. We put things off because we're really just not sure where to start. So I think it's really helpful to break things down and think about particular tasks and find out more about study strategies you can use instead of just kind of doing the same old thing that you're realizing maybe isn't working as well as you'd like it to. So we'll talk about how you can make a plan that's specific and realistic, because I think we make these grand plans and then get mad at ourselves for not following them. Let's focus on what we can do. And of course, I do think it's really important to make sure that we continue to maintain some wellness, because if we get burnt out, if we're over caffeinated, if we're stressed out, we're not going to be able to put our best foot forward. So let's get ready inside and out. Really think about your sleep, nutrition, your caffeine, other stimulant kind of intake, your exercise. Take time to laugh. Oh my gosh, it's so powerful. Connect with your supports. Don't isolate yourself. I think stretching is really helpful, doing some good positive visualization, and honestly, breathing. Good deep breathing really helps us out. And then just feeling like you're actually prepared. These are things that keep us, feeling positive about how we can get it done, but also will actually help us to get it done, not just feel like we can. So we'll first talk about some good study strategies that I really believe in here, and hopefully maybe there's something that you can all take away. So I think the first issue that people have with studying is that they're often really passive in their approach. They reread their notes or maybe rewrite them, kind of look at the textbook, but after like page 2, kind of don't know exactly what they've been reading because you lose focus, right? So we're going to really focus on some active study and learning strategies that, feel a little bit more targeted and make you more engaged with what you're learning. So first, don't just, passively flip through that textbook. Try to really read and interact with it. So I believe it's really helpful to look at the learning objectives of a section of a textbook, because that tells you what you should expect from the text. And then reading subsections without taking notes can be really helpful. Then you can take the notes once you've finished reading your section. Okay. Write down 3 to 5 important points in the blank outline that you've created. Then you can make a list or create flashcards, and that can help you keep track of vocabulary, because so much of what you're learning is about this new language and how you use it within your discipline or within your course. And then you can use those great review questions to test your knowledge, see what you understand, and then you can go back and review if you feel like you don't quite have that understanding. So that's one really good way to start studying, is to actively work through that reading or that textbook. Look to see what's coming forward. So do a preview, read and think and take some notes, and then kind of summarize and review afterwards. It's kind of a 3-stage learning and review process. The next strategy, and this is one of my favorites, is not just rewriting your notes in the same form, just maybe neater, but instead being really selective and thoughtful. So picking out what it is that you want to take note of, but also, reorganizing and showing the connections between ideas. And we often talk about this in academic skills as seeing the forest and the trees. So in your courses, you're often learning about really big concepts and big ideas, but they each are informed by a lot of specific little pieces of information. Sometimes we focus only on studying the little tiny pieces of information and miss the big picture. Or sometimes we look at the big picture and don't see all the little pieces. If we can see how they all connect together, then we're going to be able to think critically about that material and to talk about it in more kind of full way. We also probably understand it better, and that means that it kind of sticks with us. So we like these charts because they help us to kind of show the big picture, but then all the pieces and how they fit together. And it's really adaptable to different types of subjects. So in psychology, you might think about the different concepts or theories, and then you might identify that theorist, provide some historical context, talk about the main idea, provide an example. We could see that something similar happening in business. In history, you might kind of connect to the major themes of the course, think about major events, provide that time period and region, talk about the important people. For biology, if you're doing something like anatomy, you could be thinking about your systems or the components, and then looking at structure and function. And then maybe you're going to bring in an image, you're going to draw something or copy and paste an image in there, or think about what it's adjacent to, and then how you differentiate it from something that's really similar as well. So those are different ways you can approach this study chart. And I know Elijah's going to share something a little later with an example as well. If you don't like the linear grid nature of the chart, that's cool. Maybe you're much more of a mind map person or a concept map person. That's great. You take your central kind of idea, which might be, if you're studying geography, one of the major themes of the year was urban development. And then you take some of the key ideas that come out of urban development. So people are talking about recreation, they're talking about renewal or infrastructure. And then each of these have little elements that come off. And so all of that's helping you see the connections and the structures that connect those ideas. So that's another way to select information, organize it in new ways, make it meaningful to you. So the process of making these notes is really helpful, but then they become a study aid that you can review as well. And these kinds of notes are something that you can make, in the 2 or 3 weeks leading to exams, or you can make them all year long after you've done your readings, your lecture notes, that kind of stuff, and kind of consolidate them together. I think we often think that studying has to be really solitary, but we can learn so much from each other. And we can learn so much by helping someone else learn material as well. So think about joining a study group. In that group, you can discuss things. So talk about the broader themes and concepts, those categories. You can work together to make study notes if you wanted, and then think about those details or those trees as well. You can teach concepts to each other. So think about how you might explain or illustrate or define or demonstrate. Perhaps each group member would take responsibility for different parts, and then you could teach each other different elements of the course. And then certainly I think practicing particular questions and helping each other practice those questions can be really helpful. So do equations together or write essay outlines together as you study for an exam. You can't write an essay outline together for an essay that you're both going to submit. That'd be problematic. But if you're preparing for exams, this is a completely acceptable thing to do. Really be selective on the stuff you feel you need to memorize. I'm not necessarily someone who believes that you should memorize a lot of things, but I know there's some courses where you just need to do some memory work. So think about what requires that attention and don't worry about it for other stuff. So think about maybe the key vocabulary or the formulae that you kind of need to know, and use the good old strategies like maybe flashcards, and those can be digital, or those can be good old, get out the markers and have some fun. Maybe you're recopying lists of text, and timelines and charts, creating like associations with pictures or with other mnemonic devices like using stories or songs or acronyms. All of those things can be really helpful because they anchor and ground that information in your brain. Okay, I'm not going to pretend that I actually understand the psychology of it, but that's what they can do. I think it's so valuable to really test yourself to see what you should go back and review. So don't just hope that you know it. You can use those flashcards or those study guides that you've created to test yourself. So with flashcards, just work through each one and explain the term or the idea, and then check your answer to see if you've got it right. If you've got it right, it goes in the I got it right pile. I don't need to look at you again. If you got it wrong, you got to keep going. If you're using study guides, you can cover up sections of the study guide. And of course, you could cover up the right-hand side that has all those details, but you could also cover up the left-hand side and maybe only see like the application or the how is this different from, and then try to work backwards to figure it out. That often replicates the kinds of questions that you're seeing on an exam. You can also just even practice multiple choice and short answers. Those are sometimes available in your course textbook. You can find some online. You can certainly make some of your own or find some on Quizlet. Check those responses, figure out where it's gone wrong, review those quizzes that you've been doing in class to see where you could be working on your learning as well. And I think that the act of practicing answering questions is so valuable as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. Another great way that you can test yourself is using the SPEW method that was developed by Trent's psychology professor, Brenda Smith-Chant. She says, let's replicate an exam situation and make it timed. Make a list of the key terms for a chapter. Then set a timer for, we've got 2 minutes here, but maybe it's going to be 5 minutes. You can decide how many terms you're going to do. Don't try to do too many all at once. And then free write, which means you're not looking at anything. You're just saying, what do I know about these terms? It's like you're dumping whatever is there. And then go back and check your answers. What did you have fully, completely correct? What answers were partial and correct? And what answers were wrong? So the ones that were fully and completely correct, you know. But the ones that are partial or the ones that were not so good, go back to it, review it again. I think we often get into just summarizing, describing, and university is all about critical thinking and analysis. So you want to take time to analyze and synthesize. This is particularly helpful if you know that there's going to be like short answer or long answer kind of questions, like essay questions. Try to guess the questions. If you've been attending class and doing the work, you likely can guess what's going to be on the exam because when you listen to the prof, they're dropping hints all the time. So what have been the most important themes? What's kind of come up regularly? How can those topics be kind of combined into a question? Think about if you are organizing a conference or a museum exhibit, what kind of organizational structures would you use? Would there be particular displays you'd set up? Is there a certain order you'd put them in? That's you starting to kind of see the connections between different pieces of the course. And certainly that's often what you have to do in those long answer response questions on an exam. And then you'd be thinking about real world applications for these, fairly abstract concepts you're sometimes learning in your class. Think about the process and show a step-by-step. Work through and explain how that example really does demonstrate the concept, not just say that it does. How does it? You've got to show your understanding on an exam. And then finally, I alluded to this earlier, take time to practice. Doing practice questions can help you to know the material, but also get you comfortable with the process of analyzing questions. So I think if you're doing any kind of exam that has equations, practice doing those equations, but not just the same ones all the time. Change up the variables and change up if you're looking at kind of like word problems, how do you analyze that word problem to understand what it is that you have to do? What is the product that you need to do? What is the equation you would select? Which variables are useful? Are there some that aren't? Are there preconditions that you need to be considering? So keep all of that in mind. Consider like analyzing the kinds of essay questions you have. So if you got a list of essay questions for your course, for an assignment, then look at those and think about how they're worded and how those might translate to an exam. Look at the key words and how you might turn that into a thesis statement. Think about the short answer questions that might have instructional verbs like list or define or compare, and how, like, what does that mean? What action should you be taking for that? And then certainly I think there's so much value in practicing doing multiple choice questions, especially because they require a particular kind of reading and thinking. It's really important to understand the form of the question, identify the key words that are happening in that prompt or the stem, and look for both course-based words, but then also words that are really, driving the meaning. So I think read the stem once, then read it again after, and underline or take note of keywords. And then work through each response individually and analyze it. How does it, connect with that stem? Does it fit fully, completely, or not quite? And then you can test each part of the question as well to determine if it is always true when you're doing a true-false question as well, because sometimes there's kind of parts. You got to make sure if in true and false that everything is true, because if it's not, then it's false. So those are my strategies. I really do think it's important to be active in our learning and our study. So really think about your intentions, think about the type of material that you have in that course, think about the types of questions you will see, and then determine what strategies make the most sense for that course, for those questions, and for you, for your studying as well. I'm going to ask if Elijah would like to share some of his strategies and experiences in studying and using this particular strategy.
Yeah, so this is a study chart that I made quickly for one of my classes that I'm taking right now. And as you can see, so I've broken up in part of the class into 5 different categories. And the way I find it really easy to do this is if you go back to your syllabus and you look at the learning objectives, or you even like look at the schedule of what you've been learning week by week, you can really go back and like hammer down what all the concepts are that you learned. And then it's easier to go back through your textbook or through your notes and find those like headings. And then, so I really enjoy the explanation, key terms, application, and connection breakdowns. I find in the explanation, you can really put together exactly what it is. And that way, I recommend doing this without necessarily looking at your notes right away and trying to figure out what you can remember by doing this. And then go back into your notes and kind of refine it a bit. With the key terms, I like starting with this study chart and then going back and doing flashcards based on the key terms that I find for this. And that way you kind of like have outlined for yourself by doing this what is really important and it actually needs to be put on your flashcards. And then for application and connection, I know personally I like knowing why I'm learning something, and knowing why I'm learning something helps me remember it better. And then of course for long answer questions, short answer questions, essay questions, you have to be able to connect everything together. And so these 2 columns really help you do that. And that's kind of how I go about studying personally. I do want to say, if you are taking this class, not to go up just off this study chart because it's not complete, but this is definitely a part of it. Yeah, that's what I have to say about studying, I guess.
Wonderful, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing like the process of how you work through it all and why you've made selections and how you kind of extend beyond it as well. And I think that that's a good message. There's often you want to kind of use multiple ways of studying, not just one as well, to really make sure that you feel like you have a full understanding of that course material. And so you can demonstrate that understanding of your course material as well. This course looks really interesting based on your notes.
It is. I definitely recommend.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, we will keep moving along. So, and I will share really quickly. How about I share now, actually, on our website, if I can remember how to do and show. That's what I'm trying to do. And go to the Academic Skills website, where we have many how-to guides, including a whole section on how to prepare for and write exams. So we have different elements on studying here on our website. We have the study guide templates, the study charts, under our study strategies for multiple choice and more. So that's where you would find those templates. Beyond that, though, we have lots of guides on how you might study for different types of exams and how you could manage exam anxiety as well. And on this main page, we also have, and we'll get back to it in a moment, a guide on making a study plan that has a calendar and different ideas about how you can prioritize. So we're going to shift back to the slide deck and address that very issue of making a plan for these last few weeks of the term, because I think it's really important to be able to see what your commitments are, what you're trying to accomplish. You're better able to manage what you can see. So it's valuable to first just kind of take a moment to assess those upcoming exams and papers. So you can list all of your exams if you want first, you can list all your papers first, you can do a combination, but identify that, when it's happening. What I don't have included here, but I would encourage you to include, is how much it's worth as well. You could even include how well you're doing in the course, because sometimes that tells you how much time you want to give studying. Tell yourself, what the format of that exam is going to look like, what content you have to cover. In some courses, you only have to do the last 6 weeks of the course, but in some courses it's cumulative. They want you to do all of the weeks. And then list the strategies that you think you're going to use for studying, because when you plan it out and you identify the tasks, you're more likely to do it. It's easier to break it down into like daily tasks or weekly tasks. Here's this one task I want to do. I'm going to give myself a couple hours each week to do this task. So that's the one thing that I've really encouraged you to do, is just break it down. And I've even included a little estimate of like the number of hours that I might require to complete that. Okay. Then you also want to kind of just mark all of these exam dates and your assignment deadlines into your calendar. So look at your whole month or your next 2 months and start to plan out blocks of study time for each course. I'm going to speak a little bit more about assignments in a moment as well. I think sometimes for each week, you might say 1 to 2 hours per week leading up to the exam period, and then you might start giving it more time. But some courses that you might be more worried about, maybe they're going to get 5 hours of study time a week. There's another course you're feeling pretty good about, it might get 1. That's fine. Manage your priorities based on where you are with your courses and the kind of material that it is. Figure out the number of study blocks that you need and what you need each day and for each course. And also think about those assignments. And you might be at the midpoint of some of these assignments, or you might still have to start. I think it's really helpful to break down the tasks that are necessary to complete for an assignment. So we often think about the final assignment or paper, but we forget that there's a whole bunch of steps we have to take to get there first. So really working through, what kind of tasks do I need to do? Maybe I've got to do some preliminary research to help me figure out my topic. I've got to get to a tentative research question or thesis. I've got to gather all of my evidence, try to write an outline, get a draft, revise. So I've spread this over 2 weeks. Certainly it can be done in less, but it's going to feel crunched because it usually requires this amount of time to do it well. Give yourself some mini deadlines as well. And you can put those mini deadlines in the calendar along with your study blocks that you're giving yourself for exams. So I like a weekly kind of to-do list. Certainly you can start your week by saying, here's kind of my big goals. And then each day you can say, here's my specific goals for the day. Now, This might be in addition to your class time that's happening. Pay attention to that. If you've got a heavy class day, like maybe on this Thursday here, there's more class happening than on the day where you've got, 5 or 6 hours of work scheduled. Okay, so really think about that. But what we've done here is listed generally 3, sometimes 2 kind of blocks of tasks. Now, some folks might say, I'd rather just, if I've got this essay, I'd rather just work on this essay till it's done. Then it's the next thing. That is one approach, and it isn't a wrong approach. It has to fit you, but you want to make sure that you're feeling like you're still staying on top of your course readings. You're getting that review that you want to get done. And sometimes we actually can see an assignment more clearly if we've taken a break from it. So working on something else can kind of give us that fresh perspective that we're looking for. So for Monday, I've got that I'm going to spend an hour working on study charts for psychology. Then I'm going to spend an hour and a half reading for Indigenous studies. Then I'm going to start working on that essay. I've got to do some preliminary research to figure out my topic. And I've got some gaming time planned with my friends. Okay. On Tuesday, I'm going to keep working on that essay and try to find some materials. I'm going to do some geography review for an hour. I'm going to finish up that math assignment. Hopefully it's only going to be an hour and a half. Sometimes things take longer than we plan. Give yourself a little extra room each day. Recognize, don't plan every hour of the day. Give yourself a buffer a little bit just so you can plan. Also think about, well, if something's worth 1%, then give it the time that 1% deserves. So it does not deserve 10 hours of your time, okay? 10 hours of your time goes to those bigger things. So each day I've kind of identified a very specific task. So even if I have a biology lab, I'm saying I'm going to make sure I'm doing my data, I'm going to get my figures going so I can have that stuff ready for the results section. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is take those steps from, if we work backwards for a sec, from your plan for your exams and your assignment task list. And then that's what feeds into this kind of weekly plan. Okay. Still lots of room. There's 24 hours in a day. Try to sleep for some of it, right? But not all of it. Balance, you can have too much school and not enough life, or you can have too much life and not enough school. In March, I'd say the balance maybe tips to school a little bit more, but still make sure that you have some of that life piece. It's important as well, because laundry doesn't stop. I know, I'm a mom of kids. At groceries doesn't stop. We need to eat, right? And we can't order skip the dishes every day. And we need to laugh. I really do believe. So I wasn't sure if Elijah had anything to add about managing multiple assignments, planning things out at this time of the year as well.
Yeah, I have a little thing. So this is one way to do it. I learned all of my time management skills from academic skills, so mine are very similar. But the thing that I enjoy doing, and I make for all my assignments, I do have the separate due dates and things. And if ever you are feeling stagnant in something, you can always either book more time into it, or book more time into something else and then come back to it in the next week. So I don't feel totally like you're stuck in your schedule. You can always shift it. It's your schedule. Do what feels right. Having said that, I really enjoy an hourly schedule. So my schedule is booked down to the hour, but I make sure to keep an hour in between things, and that can either be used for rest or for just overlap when things take longer or things don't. And something I'd recommend is when something takes less time than you thought it would, if you are really busy, of course you can take that time and work on something else, but take some time to breathe. I know when I first started, when I, in my first year and even in my second year, I was so gung-ho about doing something constantly. It's okay to give yourself some time to breathe. So I do think booking and groceries and movie nights and laundry is so important. So definitely don't neglect those, thinking that it'll get you somewhere. I promise you, burnout gets the best of all of us. So try to keep that in mind when you're planning for things.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm glad that you find our advice helpful, Elijah, and that you encourage others to follow it as well. And I really agree with you on that. It is important to take time. I think we get stressed, we worry about our performance, so we just kind of keep working, but some downtime is really valuable. I like your 1 hour between your hour blocks as well. I think that's brilliant because it does give space for when things take a little longer, or it's helping you to build in that time that you might forget. It's like, oh, right, I need to eat, but I need to make that food and I need to clean it up. And that takes time. So I think that that's really great. And I'd say for folks that are making plans and they're kind of new at making plans, if plans don't work the way you thought they would, and everything seems to take a little longer, or you don't start things when you thought you were going to start things, don't just throw it all out. Take a moment to assess and go, okay, what's different here? And try to adjust instead. When we say, oh, well, I was supposed to start studying at 2:30 and it's 3 o'clock now and I missed it. You didn't miss it. You can still do it or push it to a little later in the day if you need. So don't, I call that, don't eat one cookie and then eat the whole package just because it's like, I kind of screwed that up. No, be gentle to yourself. Have a cookie, but it's okay to like also continue on with the work, the journey. We've got lots of templates and tools that I will also quickly show you on our website. And that is under how to manage your time. So we've got some great videos on motivation and using the Pomodoro method. That's another time block kind of method that people like to use. And we have lots of planners, including a 2-week planner that's very similar to the 1-week planner I was showing there. We've got the prioritizing, the breaking things down into steps planner, the 4-month calendar. Some people love this 24/7. Some people hate the 24/7. It's okay. You don't have to own it if you don't want to. So I really appreciate Elijah sharing his strategies that he uses to be a successful student. And I hope that you're able to take away even just one new strategy or approach. And I'll leave you with the wise words of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Success in anything comes down to this: focus and effort. And guess what? We control both of those things. Okay. Please don't be a stranger in the college office. I welcome you to find the online resources at Academic Skills. I welcome you to book an appointment and talk with a skills instructor. You can be me, but there's one of us in each college office, and you can find us, chat about the papers you're working on, talk about how you study for exam, make a plan to get it done when you're maybe feeling a little bit like you don't have a plan yet. We're happy to chat with all of those things with you, okay? Thank you so much. We appreciate you watching and joining us today.
Yeah, just to echo Erin, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. And I hope all of you have a great end to your term and enjoy all that life has to offer. That's not just studying, but studying is pretty good too. So thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Bye.